big story that is out there, and I think it's a worthy of discussion story, is how would you assess the Steelers and their chances against the Chiefs? Are the Steelers the best team in the NFL, even though they are 11-0? Eddie Garcia, you are a Steeler fan. As you mentioned, the injury to Dupree could be a pretty massive hit. And you think about the matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs and the ability to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes with your front four. I think the only way you beat the Chiefs, all right, I'll say there's three ways to beat the Chiefs. One, you have just a really poor game from Patrick Mahomes because you are able to get pressure on him with your front four. Two, you have the ability to run the football, and therefore you can keep the ball away from the Chiefs and you get them to turn the ball over a couple of times in addition to not having the ball much. And three, you just say, screw it, we're going balls to the wall. We think we have a good enough offense that it doesn't even matter what our defense is able to do. We're going to try to score 40 on the Chiefs and beat them like 42-38 or something like that. Those are the three pathways, I would say, to beating the Chiefs. And I don't love any of them because, again, if you beat the Chiefs on the offensive side of the ball, you're saying basically, hey, our offense is as good or better than your offense. And I don't think many teams can say that. The ability to get pressure with your front four without blitzing because Mahomes picks apart the blitz is really hard to do, and there aren't very many teams that have that kind of talent. And frankly, there aren't a lot of teams that can run the football and just physically take over and dominate in a game. Do you think, Eddie Garcia, that the Steelers have the horses to beat the Chiefs, or are you with me in agreement that the best team in the NFL right now is the Chiefs?
Well, I think that's two different questions. Do I think the Steelers can beat the Chiefs? Yeah, I do think they can beat the Chiefs. Remember, this is not a 5-game series or a 7-game series. It's one game. So, yeah, I think they can beat the Chiefs. But are the Chiefs the best team in the NFL, despite the Steelers being undefeated? I would say so, yes, because of Patrick Mahomes, because of their big play capability. Now, the Steelers cannot run the ball to save their lives, but the short passing game is their running game, and they have the best short passing game in the NFL. They can use that to try and keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. The Bud Dupree injury is huge because teams are not able to double team TJ Watt or help out with a running back because of Bud Dupree on the other side. Now that's not going to be the case. TJ Watt's going to see a lot of extra defenders to have to try and get through. Look, the Steelers are the best team in the NFL at creating turnovers. That's also a huge part of their success and would be something they would have to do to be able to beat the Chiefs. So, look, they have a shot, and I think it would be a good game. If you're going to ask me if I'm betting my money, I would bet the money on the Chiefs.
And it's kind of a tough spot, right? Because you're a Steelers fan and your team is 11-0, but it's almost like you can't even enjoy it because of the Bud Dupree injury and because the Chiefs just look so good, right? And there's some point in time where, and it's rare, you get to be in this situation, but where your team is playing really, really well. I mean, they literally haven't lost a game so far this season, but you start to look ahead and you start to be a little bit nervous because things couldn't be any better for the Steelers, and yet you've got that looming, what I think is going to be a dynasty of the Kansas City Chiefs out there. It's almost like back in the day, even if your team was playing really well, you had the Patriots or you had the Colts out there, and you feel a little bit like you're running straight as hard as you can into a brick wall. That's what I feel like as a Titans fan. Look, the Titans are set up right now to potentially be hosting a home playoff game for the first time since 2008. They've got a monster game now against the Browns. Both teams are 8-3. Titans are a 6-point favorite. If they can take care of business and get to 9-3, next couple of games are very winnable against the Jags and the Lions, I believe. So the Titans have a decent chance to be sitting at 11-3, which is a phenomenal record in the NFL. But I'm sitting around going, do I like our chances to be able to beat the Chiefs? No, because the Titans can't get any pressure with their pass rush. They have one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. If you can't get to Patrick Mahomes, is there any way possible that the Titans, with their third down defensive futility and their inability to get to the passer, are going to beat the Chiefs? My answer is no. Like, I don't even see, even with Derrick Henry. I mean, you would just have to have the Chiefs go out and play such an improbably bad game in order for the Titans to be able to win, and I just don't see it happening. So it kind of undercuts my excitement over my team because the Chiefs are just so good. I don't see the Titans beating them, and it's fun to make the playoffs, but the Titans made the playoffs last year, so it's not like there's been a long lag, and it's fun to win games, but last year the Titans were in the AFC Championship game. The standard is, can you beat the Chiefs? And I just don't think very many teams in the AFC can beat the Chiefs, and I certainly don't think very many teams in the NFC either, which is why I'm close to saying if you told me Patrick Mahomes was going to be healthy, because obviously that changes everything. If he tested positive for COVID, if he got injured like he did last year with the knee, the kneecap, I think it was. If you told me that Patrick Mahomes was going to be healthy, I would take the Chiefs over every other team in the NFL right now. To me, the COVID issue or Mahomes getting injured is the only thing that's going to stop the Chiefs from winning another Super Bowl. I really do believe that. What about you, Danny G? Would you take the Chiefs or would you take the field right now if you knew Mahomes is going to be healthy?
If Mahomes is healthy, then you have to take the Chiefs. Although the Steelers' defense, like I pointed out last week, that is the difference maker, I think. And as Collinsworth kept harping on in yesterday's afternoon game, the fact that Big Ben gets rid of the ball so much better this season compared to previous years, I think that does give the Steelers' offense a pretty good chance against that weak, sometimes weak Kansas City defense. So Pittsburgh does have the edge there, but anytime you have Mahomes, and we saw it against my favorite team, the Raiders had a really good formula against the Chiefs both times. But in that most recent game, even though they kept it close, it seemed like it took everything the Raiders had. It even affected them the next week. In practice, they were flat. And then obviously they laid that egg against the Falcons. But it took everything the Raiders had just to stay close with Kansas City. And then Mahomes, he's out there looking like he's playing a backyard football game.
Yeah.
Just with ease. Just tossing the ball around like, he's playing a little Thanksgiving pickup game. And that's what's frustrating as a fan of any other team. The fact that the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes puts them head and shoulders above every other NFL team.
I just think there's a lot of fans, even if your team is good, if you're the Bills, right? The Bills haven't, if you're a Bills fan listening to us right now, Bills haven't won a playoff game since 1995. And obviously the Patriots have owned the AFC East, so they're trending towards winning that division. And I know there are a lot of Bills fans in the Bills Mafia that are excited about that. But I think in the back of their mind, they probably feel the same way that I do as a Titans fan. We haven't won the division since 2008. Bills haven't won a playoff game since 1995. But I just feel like I'm on a bicycle pedaling as fast as I can directly into a brick wall. And that brick wall is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, because I just don't see anybody being able to get past them. And even if you're a Steeler fan, and even if you're going to have a bye week, and even if you know you only have to win one game, they would be a home underdog against the Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs would be able to handle the Steelers based on what I've seen so far this season. Now, they're not going to play. And again, the home playoff advantage, home field advantage is going to be negligible because it's not like the weather difference in Kansas City versus Pittsburgh is likely to be of a seismic difference, right? And so as you kind of break down this scenario going forward, I don't see any sort of major reason for optimism. And you don't want to be sitting around like rooting for Patrick Mahomes to get a positive COVID test in the week before your playoff game in order to try to knock him out. And obviously you want him to be fine, and everybody's been fine with with COVID so far in the NFL. But outside of that, again, if I told you that he was going to be 100% healthy and that he was going to be playing, I don't see anybody beating him. Now, I know, Dub, you're a gambler, and some people would say it's crazy in the NFL to take one team or the field, but I would go Chiefs if I knew Mahomes was going to be healthy against everybody else in the NFL right now. What would you do?
It's a tough call, and I would usually always take the field.
Every gambler would take the field if they're being honest, but I just think that's how dominant the Chiefs are right now.
They're a really, really good football team, and when you look at the AFC, I think the way to beat the Chiefs is to have a great running game, and the Steelers don't have a great running game. So if I'm looking in the AFC, honestly, the team that I think would potentially have the best formula to beat the Chiefs would be your Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, and I don't feel comfortable at all. I understand the argument because of what Derrick Henry is doing and what he did in the postseason last year against the Patriots and what he did against certainly the Ravens in winning 2 road games. And this year, the advantage would be, knock on wood, if the Titans win their division, they get to play the first game at home, and then they just have to win 2 road games. And road games, again, aren't really going to matter, but you could look at road games against teams like the Steelers, who the Titans played relatively evenly, and a road game against the Chiefs, theoretically, depending on how exactly the playoff seeding broke out. But even with that idea, I don't feel very confident or comfortable in the Titans being able to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's hard to see. The only 2 teams I think would have a real actual shot against Kansas City are in the NFC, and I think it's Green Bay and New Orleans, because I think both those teams could potentially keep up on
they
the
have
offensive side
better
of the ball.
defenses.
Exactly. So out of the AFC, it's hard to see a scenario where the Chiefs aren't representing that conference in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, if something happens to Patrick Mahomes, I think there are 3 pathways, and to run through them again, the way you beat the Chiefs. Front 4 pass rush, because you can't blitz, and you have to drop a lot of people into coverage because of what Kelsey and Tyreek Hill can do to you. So front 4 pass rush, running game. You have to have a decent running game, I think, in order to be able to keep the ball out of the Chiefs' hands. And then you have to just hope that you get a couple of crazy bounces that go your way, fumbles that are unexpected, like we saw yesterday in the game. You get an inexplicable, fumble on a punt return, right? That's how the Ravens scored their first touchdown. Maybe you get an awful defensive play for a 70-yard touchdown, like we saw yesterday too, from the Steelers, who didn't play well, dropped passes, tip ball interception, even though Mahomes doesn't throw very many picks. And again, I just don't see that as being very likely if you consider the way things are going so far.